evening, viewers, and welcome once again to Talkback with Gillian, your Sunday evening program here on MTV, where we discuss the trending political issues in our country over the past week. Well, we know that on Tuesday, the CCJ's ruling in relation to the unilateral appointment of the GCOM chairman and that of the appeal on the no confidence motion that was passed in Parliament on December 21, 2018, the CCJ, after listening to the arguments on both sides, gave their ruling. And the ruling was that the process to appoint the GCOM chairman was flawed and that it was in breach of Article 161, Section 2 of the Constitution of Guyana. Also, that President Granger has to give good reasons before he can reject the list of candidates. And we know that coming up when we were looking for the appointment of a GCOM chairman, that we had 3 lists that were submitted by the leader of the opposition, and on each list were the names of 6 persons, and the president did not accept the list. He rejected 18 names, persons of good standing, even at the level of persons who were in the legal profession at the highest levels, and also persons who had military background, and we had some civilians, and also the fact that even one person on that list would have previously served as a chairman of the Elections Commission. All 18 names were rejected by the president, and no good reason was given, but we had the unilateral appointment by the president of Mr. James Patterson as the GCOM chairman. And also, the CCJ ruled that 33 was the majority of 605 as it relates to the no confidence motion, and that it was in good standing. Also, the fact that the submission by the government side that the vote of Mr. Charandas Persaud was invalid, it was null and void, the CCJ ruled against that and ruled in the favor that that vote was in right standing. He was a member of the National Assembly, and the rules in the Constitution states that after you have 28 days after the appointment of a member of Parliament to reject that person, to have objections to that person. 28 days did pass, and also the fact that Mr. Charandas Persaud was not the only person who had dual citizenship sitting on the government side or in the National Assembly. And so those rulings came out, and just before the rulings came out, about a day or two before, we heard the government saying that they were going to abide by the rulings of the CCJ. And they asked persons, to be calm and everything. But, we're seeing that since that ruling came out and that it was not in the favor of the government, we're seeing a different reaction by the government side. Tomorrow is the CCJ will listen. It's the case of the consequential orders, where the consequences of the orders that were handed down, the government and the opposition has to show their reasonings as it relates to the holding of elections and the way forward, and as it relates to the appointment of a GCOM chairman. One would have thought that after the ruling that was handed down, immediately, in a very professional and leadership and mature manner, the president of Guyana would have called in the leader of the opposition for them to have discussions on the way forward. That has not happened. What we know is that late last week, I think that it was around Thursday or so, or Friday, somewhere around then, that the president wrote to the leader of the opposition indicating that he will put together a meeting for the next week. Now, next week is after the CCJ would have handed down their ruling as it relates to the consequential orders, because nothing has happened in that direction. And so now what has to happen is that the CCJ now have to give directions. What it is showing to us as Guyanese and having a government, there that seems not to be bothered about what's going on. And the utterances of ministers of the government quite recently, have your eyebrows raised in that manner. We're hearing about it's war, and you're not going to take it that easy. You're hearing about the CCJ can't give a ruling to Guyana because Guyana is an independent nation and it has its independent laws. Now, all the time, cases were going to the CCJ by this very government, and they accepted the rulings. They never said that it was an independent country with independent laws, and so they're not accepting those decisions. But lo and behold, now it's not in their favor. We're now hearing that, okay, the CCJ cannot give a ruling. So why did we go to the CCJ all along for other rulings? Why all of a sudden the CCJ has no authority to tell us what to do? That speaks, in essence, of political bullyism on the part of the government. This kind of attitude that, it's their way or no way. And the fact that we're talking about, telling people it's war and these kinds of things. We're to the point where the chief whip and an executive member of the People's Progressive Party Civic, Ms. Gillian, forwarded a letter to the Commission of Police and the Ethnic Relations Commission. And I do hope that they will take up the matter. Because when the leaders of the PPP speak, and anything just seems a little bit amiss, we're there with court cases and persons wanting them to be sanctioned and that kind of thing. But they're uttering the same things. So it seems it's a case of do as I tell you to do, but not as I do. You can go there and tell people about war. We need to be, and it's only last week where we had callers who were, and a particular caller who called, we need political maturity in this country. And no confidence motion was not plucked out of the sky. The people were complaining and continue to complain. During the lead up to the local government elections of 2018, November 2018, persons did complain. The political opposition has a right to listen to those pleas and listen to the concerns of the people and their issues and forward it to the parliament to have it addressed by the government. And it is in that stead that even the results of the local government election proved that persons were disenchanted with the government of the country, and hence a no confidence motion. Now, this is not the first time a no confidence motion was even tabled in Guyana. It was in 2015, it was tabled in Guyana by the now government, who was then the opposition. Then we also have across the world, it's a 300 and something years history of no confidence motions being tabled in parliaments, either of individuals or of governments. We see where a no confidence motion just after the no confidence motion in December, early in this year, the British Parliament put forward a no confidence motion that was passed on the Prime Minister of Britain, Ms. Theresa May. And there has to be the process that they will go through and to have elections to deal with that. So why is Guyana so exceptional? Why is Guyana so different? And because the ruling is not in the favor of the government, we're hearing all these irresponsible statements coming from ministers of the government. Why are we calling people? And I want to appeal to the Guyanese populace out there. Elections will come, elections will go. It is your democratic right to be able to put forward how you feel by your votes of political parties stepping forward. And I'm pleading and begging the Guyanese populace, do not allow yourself to be dragged in to violence by any political leader, community leader, whatever. Because when it happens and you get involved in that kind of actions and you are caught, you better believe it, the very people who fuel the issue and encourage your participation in such acts will step away from you. They will disown you. You don't need that. We need to state, let our votes be our voice. The government is pussyfooting around the issue of elections. The Constitution clearly stated that when the no confidence motion is passed, you have 90 days in which to hold elections. 90 days have passed and gone. We had all the court proceedings to the level of the CCJ, the highest court in the Caribbean. And a ruling was passed. And now we're hearing a government saying, no, they need house-to-house registration. They're not going to elections without a house-to-house registration. If you don't have a house-to-house registration, it's going to disenfranchise the young people. Where were they in the past 4 years after campaigning on a platform to look after the young people of the country, the youths? Where were they when those youths needed them? The jobs, the many young people that were sent home from their jobs because it was assumed that they're supporters, activists, or sympathetic to the People's Progressive Party civic. Where was this government? Where are the jobs they promised the young people? We're not seeing anything happen. Just in the last few days, just after the no confidence motion was passed, we're seeing them running around the country, chasing their tails, looking there to try to encourage persons to come on board and support them. The very young people who they had no time with up to recently. Now you're using the young people again to say that they will be disenfranchised. And we know it's different. So you're saying to me that we have an elections commission with permanent staff that is paid monthly to do a job to ensure that our list of voters are updated, it's intact, everything is good. It's across the country. In all 10 administrative regions, you have GCOM sub-headquarters, you have the headquarters in Georgetown. So you're saying to me that the staff is there doing nothing. You're saying to me that the leaders, the management of the GCOM, they're incompetent, they're not doing anything. Then they're malingering according to labor rules. We're saying that we don't need this big house-to-house registration and all of that. We're saying that we need elections in keeping, and that is what GCOM is there for, to ensure that at any point in time, an election has to be called overnight. They're ready to go. That is what they're there for. That is what they're being placed there for. That is what management is there for, to guide the process and to be able to ensure that the work is being done in keeping with the policies of GCOM. We're seeing something completely different. We're hearing that the president has the only person has the right to state the date of elections. GCOM can't tell him what to do. And it seems that nobody can tell our president what to do. I think somewhere along the line, we're misunderstanding what a president has to do and what is an agency to do. I am saying that the time has come for us in Guyana to be politically mature. I'm saying that the time has come for us as leaders to be responsible. I'm saying the time has come for us to playing with the sympathies and emotions of the people of this country, using them for one thing. They're good when you want to get into office or stay into office, but when you get there, you forget about them. I am first a private citizen before I'm even a politician. And it irks me to see the way in which, political leaders will want to use the citizens of this country. As if we're dum-dums, we don't know what's going on. Our young people are irrelevant. So tomorrow we'll have the handing down of the consequential orders on the rulings that we had on the unilateral appointment of the chairman of GCOM, and also as it relates to the no confidence motion, both that were seen the GCOM chairmanship as being flawed and goes against the Constitution, and the no confidence motion that in essence that was validly passed. And I want to say here, it's sad A constitution of a country is the law books. It's the guidebook, the handbook of a country. And the government of the country is the custodian of those laws. The government is the protector of those laws. And the government is the person, the agency that has the responsibility to ensure that that set of rules that are there, that they are being utilized and that they are being adhered to. It's sad when a government can turn against the very constitution for which it is the custodian of. And that is what we're seeing happening in Guyana today. A government, the constitution says one thing and the government doesn't see it that way. So we're going to open up the phone lines to hear your views on the rulings of the CCJ, and also how do you feel about the irresponsible utterances of on the government side, the irresponsible utterances. Why the call for violence and war? People, innocent persons are going to be caught up in it. They're going to get injured. We don't need that in Guyana. We need a process to go forward. Let's get to the tape, do what we have to do, and let the people speak by their votes. So we're going to open up the phone lines here on 233-2459 and 501-0617. And let's have your calls. Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian. Well, we missed that call. You know, we need persons to come on board and to let the process begin. Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian.
Oh, good evening, Gillian and Joel. No, I'm aware of what is going on, but my point is this. This government will be removed from office. They did not serve the full time. They were actually kicked out, dismissed. Are they entitled to pension?
You're asking if when?
If they're entitled to pension because they're being dismissed, they're being kicked out of office, they didn't serve the time.
Well, I think that they might be because of the period of time that they would have served there. I think that would be it. Not so much certain, but I think that they will be entitled to pension. Okay? Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian.
Good night, Mr. Gillian.
Good night.
I have a question for you. Were you ever a member of the PPP, a PNC?
Yes, it's a public knowledge.
Mr. Harman, too, is one of them. Hamilton, Mr. Hamilton?
That's right, yes.
Something seems to baffle me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I listen to the members of the government speaking, they seem to make no sense to me. And now, whenever I listen to Mr. Hamilton, and now I'm listening to you, you people speak with sense. Is it you more bright more than these people there, or what is it?
Well, the rationale that you're making there will tell you that is why we left.
Okay, so I'm of the opinion that the smart people of the PNC are leaving to join the PPP. Is that so?
Well, it's not, well, you were saying the smart people. But, you know, so many persons have become disillusioned, disenchanted with policies. You see, when you are a part of a political party, you look at the policies. If you're going to take up leadership, you look at the policies that the party will have. And if it's not in keeping with what you will want to see happen, then, you know, most times you move away.
Let me say just one more thing. I was looking at a program with Mr. Christopher Ram, and he voted for the PNC in 2015, and he's terribly disappointed. Mm-hmm. This is something that he's supposed to speak on national television. Mm-hmm. I think he was interviewing the trade unionist, Mr. Mr. Lincoln. Lewis spoke his words. Mm-hmm. So it's getting to me now that most of the smart people are leaving the PNC and teaming up with the PPP. Is that so?
Well, that's good, yeah. Thanks for coming through.
Yeah, thank you.
That is when you're in leadership, when you want to serve your country, when you want to see your country progress and go forward. You don't want to be caught up in things that are not developing people, empowering people, and so you have to let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. And so when things are not going the way you go, that is why, you would leave. And that comes to the point where the CCJ, one of the judges was saying, the government put forward the argument that the Constitution states that nobody has the right can vote against their party in Parliament. And in the ruling handing down, in the statements, the CCJ judge, the president, did say that the vote of Mr. Charandas Persaud, voting against the government for which he was on their side and voting with the opposition, that no confidence motion and that vote, what it did for Guyana is to return us to a state of democracy and moved us away from a state of this dictatorship. Those are damning statements to be made by by the highest court in our Caribbean. And that is what the PPP has been saying all the time. We were in a state of dictatorship. You were telling me that I can't vote against something that I don't believe in. So how are we going to have democracy? So how, and only a government can put forward a no confidence motion against itself. When will any government put forward a no confidence motion against itself? That is totally, awkward. Wonder where the thinking is, and so many legal minds. Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
We need to have more people like you in this country, because I think what you're saying is so true, for the young generation and for the old generation. I can understand why the government is not listening to the CCJ. And, these things is very upsetting, because the young people that are looking at these things, what does they gain out of it?
You have to lead, you have to have your leadership that will pilot the next generation of politicians coming in. Sometimes I wonder if the things that this government is doing is to deter the young people from getting involved in politics.
Look at Mr. Moses Nagamoto. He's campaigning in Bartica, and he's from Borbis. Why don't he go to Borbis and campaign there? The people have been open arms welcome him. So is Mr. Ramjatan, but they're not going there. They're going in different area. Why are they going in different area? Because the damage was done to the people and the promises that are made to the people that did not live up to it. And now they're running. They're running in different directions. They promised the people $9,000 for a bag of paddy in Leguan and Esquivel. They can't even get $4,000 for a bag of paddy. And then he is preaching and lecturing on national television about constitution rights and constitutional performance and whatever it is. The first thing is that he got to look at himself. Am I right there, Ram?
Yes, I agree with you. Okay, well, thank you for your comments and thanks for coming through. Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian.
Good evening. I think you need to turn off the telephone volume or get the mic close to the phone because we can't really hear the callers. We hear you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to say, everybody, every right-thinking Guyanese, there's no confidence motion. This, what do you call it? This house for decision. Just a tactics, a delay tactics. These guys are going to use to hold on and try to cling on and to acquire under false pretense as much as they can, right? Because I think all these guys that speak on this data part, right? First of all, we should refer to them as farmer. We don't have a president in Guyana. Do you know that? There's a former president. Green is the former president. He is no longer the president. Winston Jordan is the former Minister of Finance, and he called him for war. All this is so irresponsible. He should be in jail. Do you know that? If they want to deem the CCJ ruling irrelevant, I think that Kajagdev can run for a short term now. Because it was the CCJ who said he cannot. And if they are not going to deem these people's pronunciation on this matter as irrelevant, Mr. Jagdev can have a short term. You agree with me?
Yeah.
All right.
Because you're saying that the CCJ has no right, then why do you take your cases there? Anyway, thanks for coming through. Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian. As I said earlier in the program, it seems that, this government has an attitude or their way or no way. Had it gone in their favor, we would have had a lot of celebrations going on about what has happened. It hasn't gone in their favor. But you don't need to incite persons to violence and civil unrest. You don't need that. If you're a government that is doing the work that you're supposed to do, you won't have a problem. But if you're not doing the things that you're supposed to do, the things that you promised the people about, then you will have a problem. When this no confidence motion was tabled in Parliament, we heard the chief whip of the government side saying, bring it on, we're ready. And when you listen to the debate on the motion, what you had, a lot of blame game and going back to some time and somebody this and somebody that. No account was given for their stewardship for the 4 years. None was given. They didn't state one reason of why they should remain the government of the day. They didn't say anything. This, you say, I say, we say, you did this, and this was that, and you're bringing out all these people, and the period of the killings, and all kinds of things you're bringing out. People wanted to hear, us against you. This is what I did as a government. These are the things that I'm doing, and these are the things that I will shortly commence. You didn't get any of that. The PPP could have said what they did for the 23 years, and it's there. It's recorded what the PPP did. But we're saying that based on what the people are saying, they don't have any confidence in you. Now, you went through the process. It's up against you. Bring the elections on. Let us continue with the bring it on. Bring on the elections and let's see who will win without inciting civil unrest. You don't need that. You were saying that you did a good stewardship. You've done good for your people. We're saying that based on our information and our interactions with the people of this country, that you have not done so. A motion was passed against you. It went all the way to the CCJ, who has ruled out of your favor. And the very arguments that you put forward and your judgments in the way of the appeal was so flawed and incorrect, a total embarrassment to the people of this country, the arguments that you put forward for legal minds. And the CCJ ruled. They gave their verdict on it. Let's bring it on now and let's see where it goes. Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian.
Good night, OMP. I just want to say that I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's time we stop pretending. The time has come that we got to stop pretending. Imagine we looking like, I don't agree with you that the CCJ is a very significant historic event in the life of not only Guyana, but the Caribbean and wider field in the region. Now, the important thing is this: we look very ridiculous in the eyes of the world that we call it for war break, and this kind of thing, because the issue of the CCJ ruling has to do with 3 months that the government has prolonged the life for. They seem to be playing with the lives of the Guyanese people, because the Guyanese people, this is not a war between the PPP and the ACNU. This is a war between, as you rightly pointed out, democracy and authoritarianism. This is what the war is all about. Whether we will accept the prolongment of the Chairman of Elections Commission so that they can find a way to remain in power. And this whole idea about oil and all is just pretense. This is just that people who are there holding positions are trying to maintain their privileges and their rules. So thank you very much for bringing on this program. It's a very timely program. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling through. Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian.
Hi, ma'am. Good night. I'm calling you from Region 2, ma'am. I really enjoy your program.
Thank you.
I saw you as a very, very fair person in your deliberation. What I want my contribution here tonight is that, concerning the whole issue about this campaign and this election, the CCJ ruling, these people take this country 4 years to have it for themselves. What they did for the people, nothing. They came to Essequibo on the campaign trail and they set farmers in Region 2 vote for AFC Apnu for a change. We're going to give you $8,000 to $9,000 back for party. Fool the farmers in the secret. They say, look at the PPP cabinet, look at them. Donald Trump is an old person, look how old, he can't run this country. When we get into power, we're going to put the youths around the country. Where's the youth? What they did for the youth? Nothing they did for the youth. And they're coming now, when they know the election coming now, they're coming now and fooling the people them and telling them we're going to give you house lot, the blind people, and all these people getting house lot and all these kind of things. Now they know about youth. Where the 4 years you had, 4 years they did not come and do no outreach program, come to the people them and tell them, say, look, we take over this country, what you all need, let me know, we're going to try to do something for you. Now, because of the no confidence motion pass, and now you get it from the CCJ, now the ruling coming for the opposition, now they're coming out with all kind of tricks and them kind. They're talking about fire. Listen, in the past, in the 80s, we had a lot of fire and a lot of destruction. We would not sit down and take it this time. If they want fire, according to what they say, fire, more fire, we sit down and we go, we don't want fire. We want peace. But if should come to push, we will not sit down and take this time, ma'am. We will not sit down. It is time now that they come to their senses. They promised a lot of things to the Guyanese people, and they did nothing for us. Nothing. Look, all the youths. They can't find a job for this youth. They're finding them smoking cocaine and marijuana this street corner every afternoon and all about the place. Crime. Look at the crime situation in this country. Every day somebody gets in jail. The jail is so full they can't hold people. So I don't know what these people really trying to fool people and tell people. It is the people fed up with this fooling. It's a different time now.
Well, thank you for your comments. For coming through.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian. Okay, we lost that call. But this is, it's so disgusting that we want to tell ourselves that persons are, they're so stupid. You said something on a campaign trail, it did not happen. Our youths today, I commend the youths of today for the way in which, they analyze the things. And I keep saying it every day to persons. This generation is not a generation that you could push stuff down their throats. When you tell them something, the internet is there. They go and research, and they have their own little discussions in their groupings. If this government was walking the road, going around and listening to persons, paying keen attention, they would have understood that the young people have their discussions. Not because they might be at the various sporting joints and that kind of thing, that they're just drinking and having fun. No. Lots and lots of the time they're having serious discussion because their lives, their well-being is being affected. And so they discuss. They have their discussions, they share their views, they analyze. So they're not stupid. You can't go to them and tell them A is a C and C is a Z and they're going to accept it. No, they don't. So this government needs to get with it where these young people are concerned. You promise them jobs. You promise them a better life. You promise them the good life. They waited 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. This is 4 years. Nothing has happened for them. Very, it's like a speck of ice in the 7 seas that would have happened for the young people in this country. Very few were able to benefit. And those who were able to benefit are those who have their connections. They were the ones who would have benefited. The normal youth or the ordinary youth out there, many of them, hundreds, thousands coming out of universities and secondary schools, not knowing where they're heading to. Their parents already, many of them have their own burdens to bear. And then now they have to give a helping hand to these young people. What you are doing is demoralizing our young people. Because many of them tell themselves, my parents put me through secondary school, they've put me through university, I'll come out, I'll get a job, and I'll make a life of my own. It's not happening for them. But you were saying that, okay, vote for me, give me a second chance. Oh, it was only 4 years. 4 years to do what you said you were going to do for the people of this country. When you're in opposition and you're looking to take up government, you have to have plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Maybe right down to Z. So when one don't work, the other kick in. You hit the ground running. You've spent 23 years in opposition. All you did is that when the PPP Civic was in government, you use your one-seat majority to keep this country down, to keep it back. Today we could have had the specialty hospital. We could have had the Amelia Falls project kicking in. The airport would have already been rebuilt, not renovated as we're happening today. We would have had so much going on for this country. But you voted it down. Agencies, their budgets were cut to $1 because you had one measly seat in Parliament. You punished the people of this country, and then you went on the campaign trail. You lied to the people of this country by telling them what you were going to do for them if they put you in government. You needed a change. This country needed a change. And you know what? Many of them heeded to your call. And they went out there, the young people especially, and they voted for you. You got in government, and 4 years counting. You can't do anything for them. Now that a no confidence motion is passed against you, now you have to go to the polls. You keep pussyfooting around the issues, and you're going back to those same young people, those same voters, and ask them to give you a second chance. This big hue and cry about oil money, and the PPP wants to get its hands on the oil money, and the PPP wants to steal the money. The record is there to show, the track record, what the PPP would have done in 23 years. And I'm saying that the PPP is not a picture-perfect party. It would have had its flaws, it would have had its setbacks, it might have done things that were not right. What have you done to, now you're there? You're not doing anything. We have not seen any development. We've seen a few roads done. We've seen bypass put up along the East Bank. You know, what is there to shout about? But now you're saying, oh, we're just 4 years in government, we need another chance. No, you're playing with people's well-being. You're playing with people's well-being. And so we need to see things happen for us. We can't wait for this good life anymore. We need the good life. And you're not giving it to us. Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian. Good evening. So we need to see things happen, and we're saying, let us go to the polls. Let us go to the polls and let the people speak. Let the voters speak. We're confident. We're confident that we will do better because we have done good for this country before. And so we're confident that we will do better. We're not going to come to the people with promises. We come with policies and the possibility of making those policies work to make a better, a prosperous life for people. The PPP don't have to call people to come out and be violent and civil unrest. We don't believe in that. We're a mature political party. Yes, you will have your little picketing exercises. That's your democratic right. But we're not going to tell people to go and injure, do things that will cost this country. When you burn and you loot and you do all those things, then you have to use the taxpayers' dollars to fix back those things. Does it make sense? Let your work speak for you. Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian. Hello? Good evening. And so we have a country to develop. We have a country to take forward. We have people to empower, to motivate, and to get them to that next level. And that is what we're all about. Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian.
Hi, good evening, Miss Gillian.
Good evening.
What I really want to talk about the kind of talk, because 3 people called in, right? The first man that called in spoke about Moses Nagamutu campaigning in Bartico. You as a host, we must be able to correct these people at times. Moses Nagamutu is a guy in this. Another man called in said that Winston Jordan and Mr. Grinch is not president and finance minister anymore. You must be able to correct these people. I'm calling again just now and saying that these people play with people's mind, that they but more fire and this fire, and this time around we not sit down. Mrs. Burton, this is all of us country. Don't encourage those start. Correct those people, please.
But I did so after he came off the air, saying that we don't need persons to be violent.
You should even entertain violence on your program. You just keep a much balanced program more than the horse and 69 and Mr. Nadir, because I listened to Mr. Nadir Thursday and it was heart-rending. Mr. Nadir was in the US, and if Mr. Nadir former party can't get a vote on his own, you much more impartial than plenty of them with the skip program, Mrs. Burton. Keep it this way. When you walk away from the political scene and you're on the streets of this country, they mustn't see you as a politician, they must see you as the guy you need.
Thank you.
When we get the campaign, we must have a clean campaign.
That's right.
And in doing so, we will be able to respect each other on the road and don't fight him because of another. This one is done, the one is done. We need to get there and we need to stop. Don't entertain certain things on this program. I'm not directly a program, but things you shouldn't even mention, but violence, we don't want it and don't entertain it on your program. We don't want no violence inside this country.
Thank you.
Good.
Thanks for your comments. Well, that was a good comment, a person who making some observations indeed. Yes, we don't need violence. I need to see people campaigning. I need to see our leaders talking about issues. We have to talk about issues. We have to tell the people where we're taking them. You know, that is what we need people to do. We don't need, to get into the gutter type of politics. I often tell people, when I went into Parliament, I was sad by the way in which some of the heckling what takes place. I don't like it. We are there as mentors to others, adults, and even young people, more or less. They must feel that the Parliament and politics is a high point of a career. And, we need to be careful what we say to our people out there. I continue to say I don't need to see violence. I've borne a lot from the 2015 elections, general and regional elections. I've seen a young guy being beaten up because he was driving a vehicle that was loaned to me. I didn't own the vehicle. And to date, I have to pay that person for the vehicle because it was upturned, he was dragged out, he was beaten badly, had to get rescued in a polling station. The person's vehicle was burnt beyond recognition. We have to be careful. And I could remember standing in Parliament and debating when we were asking for persons who were affected by the violence on elections night, for them to be compensated. And a minister stood up and said, you look for it. Persons look for it. No, that is not the way we must teach our people. Our people must be happy to know, look, I have the right to choose. If I feel that the government of the day is not doing right for me, when election is called, I have the right to choose. Persons must not be afraid to cast their ballot because they would be victimized or violence would be meted out against them. That is not the case. We're celebrating 53 years of independence in our country. Where are we heading to? Where are we taking our young people in this country? We're telling them that violent civil unrest is the way to go. But then, at another point, we're telling them about discussion and having meaningful dialogue. We're talking about social cohesion. And yet, there's a lot of race baiting. I'm on Facebook, and I'm seeing some comments, coming from either sides of race in this country. And it's not good. It is not good. Then if we're going to take that route, our motto should be changed. We are not one people, we are not one nation, and we're not heading to one destiny if that is the way we're going to go. We should not be participating in such actions. We need to do better. Guyana is a unique country. It's made up of 6 races in this country. And we could say a 7th, because you have those who come from different, all the little ethnicities come together. We're Guyanese. Guyana belongs to each and every one of us. We have a right to our space here. We have the right to freedom of speech and freedom of expression and freedom to associate. Why are we going down this road? I'm really, really disturbed to hear leaders in our country, ministers of government, who should know better, calling, for this rise up and they would want to say, no, that is not what they meant by war. But then you have to explain because once you mention the word war, it could be physical, it could be psychological, it could be mental, it could be verbal, it could be written war. Because there's the war of the pen. We don't need that in Guyana. We need responsible leaders. We need our people to be mature-minded. We need our people to be able to live in the same space, to be able to disagree, to agree. And I'm pleading, tonight on this program, I'm pleading with our Guyanese people. Do not be engineered, be motivated, be inspired to any acts of civil unrest. We don't need that. We need to take our country forward. We need to hold our leaders responsible. We need to let our leaders know that when they are placed there, they are placed there to do a good job and to make our lives better. We didn't put them there to enjoy themselves and have fun at our expenses. Because at the end of the day, it's the taxpayers' dollars that pay the political leaders in this country. And so we need to see better. Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian.
Hello?
Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian.
Hello?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to Talkback with Gillian.
Hello?
Okay, that person apparently is listening to themselves back on their television. But we need Guyana to really, really move forward. Tomorrow, it's going to be the consequential orders hearing, and once again, all Guyana would be listening, tuned in, even those who do not reside in Guyana. The world will be listening, and we will be looking at the reaction of the political leaders of this country. Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian.
Good night.
Good night.
Don't laugh when the GCOM chairman was removed. According to the Times of Ghana, they do it a dumb port. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian.
Yes, Gillian, good night. I'm enjoying your show.
Thank you.
People like you, outspoken. I don't think you may have many friends with the government, but you're doing the right thing. One of the things I saw Mr. Jordan addressing a crowd and talking about war break. This kind of attitude these people portraying. Then Ms. Lawrence, she made another statement about she only providing jobs for people who are affiliated with their government. And then you had another minister who made a security guard was arrested because he was doing his job in his parking lot. I don't understand this is real bullyism attitude. And I think if people want a better life, then I gotta go and live in places like Agricola and so on. Because a lot of attention is focused on those places. Because this is where they get the support from. When the looting and the setting of the fire and all these things started. And I went to school for so many years, and I didn't know I would have lived to see a day like today when 32 is higher than 33. I don't know what's happening with the mathematics system right now in Guyana, where 33 is less than 32. I don't know if you could explain that to me.
I can't explain it because I wasn't taught that type of maths.
Yeah, you're right. Well, then we went to the same school, old school. Something wrong with these people. And they're afraid to go to the polls because they know it's not out. It's going to be 31 to 34.
Okay.
Predict the victory, 31 to 34.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Thanks for coming through. Good evening and welcome to Talkback with Gillian. Could you speak up, please? I'm not getting you clearly. You need to speak up a bit.
What do you think that this government do for Guyana is by taxing poor people?
Okay.
And you know, I want to know how he spent this $314 billion budget. What he did for Guyana with his money. And he do it within 7 months.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to Talk Back with Gillian.
Good night, Mr. Sir.
Good night.
I got 2 points to make. One is, I want to know if the new government and the PP government, the opposition,
Mm-hmm.
if they vote by themselves, party to party vote by themselves, if the people in vote to put them there, what will become of them? No man one got 33 and one got 32.
Mm.
The people have to vote to put them there.
Okay.
And number 2, come to the next general election, I will ask the next president, the PP president, to be a professor of math. I go and teach math with some assistants in UG.
Okay.
Because
Well, I do hope you teach the right type of maths.
I think by now, 34 is majority of 65.
Uh-huh.
34 and 34 is 68. Parliament only have 65 seats. I'll be
Okay.
the professor of the new formula of math
Oh,
in
okay.
UG.
All right. We'll bear that in mind. Thanks for
And
coming.
the PP government says so.
Okay. Thanks for coming through. All right. Well, that had to be my final call for this evening. I'm running up closely to program time. I want to take just one more call before I close off. Good evening and welcome to Talk Back with Gillian.
Good evening, Gillian.
Good evening.
I want election tomorrow morning, and I want the GCOP chairman to step down and let Mr. Great pick one from the list and let me get this country moving forward. This country, nothing in the way. Thank you.
Thanks for coming through. Good evening and welcome to Talk Back with Gillian.
Hi, Miss Gillian. Good evening to
Good
you.
evening.
If I was next to you, I would give you a big hug and a kiss.
Wow.
I really admire your program.
Thank you.
I listened to you right through. You were such a fair person. And I can't explain it, but you really, we want more people like you in this country. Because let me tell you something, Miss Gillian. Black people and Indian people got to realize that no matter who go in government, they got to work, they got to provide for the children, they got to pay taxes, and they got to do everything just as the same. So it doesn't make sense who go there and who won't go there, because all of them go in there to fill their pockets.
Okay, thank you for your comments and thanks for coming through. Well, that was our final caller for this evening here on Talk Back with Gillian. And we had lots of persons calling in. Again, I want to appeal to our citizens out there. Do not allow yourselves to be motivated, to be inspired, to be pushed into having civil unrest in our country. We don't need that. What we need is the elections to be called for us to go to the polls and let us decide who we want for our government. And we need to have free and fair elections. We don't want where there is the rigging and all that is going through, and all this kind of pussyfooting around is just raising eyebrows as to why we have not reached to that state. The point where the CCJ would have ruled, and tomorrow it's going to hand down its consequential orders. Let us abide by the laws of our country. Let us abide by our Constitution. The Constitution wasn't written by one person. It was a collective, and it is our law books. We need to abide by it. Let your yea be yea, your nay be yea. All who would have said that they will abide by the ruling of the CCJ, the time has come now to prove that you will abide by the rulings of the CCJ. We don't want to hear that the CCJ can't give Guyana instructions. It's an independent country with independent laws. You went there before for other issues, and when it was in your favor, the persons who it went against had to abide by it. It is your turn as leaders, as political leaders, to abide by those rules. Let's get it going, but in peace, in unity, and in harmony. And before I leave you this evening, I want to give you the excerpt from the 30th anniversary of the Republic, an excerpt from the address by the then president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Dr. Barry Jagdeo. And he said, our heroes will not be satisfied that we merely maintain the trappings of freedom. They will have wanted us to utilize our freedom to build a national economy that is self-sustaining, to fashion democratic institutions where the fundamental rights of all citizens are protected, to consolidate the restoration of free speech, movement, and association for which they fought. Those were an extract from the 30th anniversary of the Republic of Guyana, the address given there by Dr. Barry Jagdeo, then president of Guyana. And I'll give you the closing with a quote that I should have given you at the opening of the program, but I was so excited to get us into our calling segment. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is the little extra. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is the little extra. Let us put the little extra in being civil, in living together as one, in one space, and truly putting the effort to ensuring that our motto stands for what it is: one people, one nation, one destiny. I am Gillian Burton Persaud, thanking you for having me in your homes, and I'll be back next week with another program of Talkback with Gillian. Until then, have a blessed evening and a productive week.